Today, I have a fascinating interview for you where you are going to get the inside story from a Ukrainian citizen about the war effort and the geopolitical situation in Ukraine, Russia, etc., Eastern Europe. I have visited both Ukraine and Russia several times and was very saddened when the invasion occurred. And I was very much on Ukraine's side initially. And I have not changed my opinion of that. However, I have changed my opinion of the motivation behind the war and so forth. And sadly, it just seems to have become a big money laundering scheme, unfortunately, and a big support of the military industrial complex, which is awful. And as I always say, as long as war is profitable, there will never be peace. But today, let's get the inside scoop on this from a Ukrainian friend of mine who does not want to be identified. We will call him Nick. And Nick, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
It's my pleasure. And thank you so much for informing people about what is really going on and what people are really saying behind the scenes, what the real thoughts are on this war. So I'll just let you take it wherever you want initially and have some questions, but just give us kind of the overview and your perspective, if you would.
What helped us at the very beginning, and I mean at the end of 2021, before the big invasion began, and at the beginning of 2022, most of our friends and family members were watching exclusively Ukrainian media, and we can say Ukrainian propaganda.
Right.
At that time, we were far away from our home country. With my wife, and for some reason we were watching American news, we were watching Indian news, we were watching Arabic channels, we were watching Russian channels, Ukrainian channels, and the picture just before it all started was so much different from different point of views, and I think we had a much better way to put the puzzle together. And answering the question what's going on in Ukraine is still very difficult because what Western media, mass media says, and what, for instance, the Global South media would say, it's often just the opposite. Yeah. And I learned that when we only rely on one way of thinking, we miss the whole picture mm-hmm. by probably 99%.
Yep.
And I used to be subscribed to the Economist magazine. I used to mm-hmm. respect the magazine. Yep. But then I learned, like again, in 2022, I've seen how much misinformation or just not delivering the full picture was published on the pages of the magazine. So
yep.
for me,
and I agree. By the way, the Economist used to be such a reputable source, but like so many other outlets, they've been bought out. You know, they've just become an agenda. So you're absolutely right. But
so what's going on in Ukraine, to answer this question, I would say if somebody really wanted to learn it deep, I would suggest watch or read Indian sources, Chinese mm-hmm. sources, Russian, Ukrainian, of course, Western, and maybe I don't know some others. From my understanding is we are not in Ukraine since we left Ukraine just 3 months before the invasion, and I was lucky enough just to have this feeling that something is going to happen. I didn't know what it will be. When it happened, I realized why we were just moved. We were taken out of the country. We couldn't stay there. In November 2021, 3.5 months before the invasion, we couldn't be in there. We had to leave. I mean, left.
What do you mean? So, I mean,
this feeling, there's like emptiness. There's like, you know, when it's a tsunami is going to approach.
You could feel it
shore,
happening before.
The water goes into the ocean.
Yep.
So I had this kind of feeling like it's too quiet. It's like something is going. I couldn't really understand what it is, what it could be. So we were lucky enough to leave the country. But for what I understand now, every day the situation is worsening and worsening and worsening, and no money from the West, no weapon armor from the West will improve the situation. There's no chance. It can only make the situation, the country, the people life worse. And people are still live in Ukraine illegally because from 18 to 60
60.
are not allowed to leave the country. People
Right.
paid at the beginning. They were paying just $1,000 to the border guard, and they were left out. A couple
Hmm.
of weeks later, the price was 3 to 5,000. Then it's 10,000. Some people would pay 20 and more thousand US dollars, and this is a huge money for Ukraine. For American, it's relatively okay, maybe,
What do
but
you
for
mean they
Ukraine,
would pay? Pay who? For what?
oh, they pay for illegal either for illegal dogs, like for the medical,
To be able to
medical,
leave the country? Is
yeah,
that what you're
yeah,
saying?
medical, like the tests that
Yeah.
they are, uh,
Ineligible to fight.
yeah, or they would just pay someone at the border to guide them through the forest or through the river, or people from the military who are guarding their borders or who are involved in medical exams. They became millionaires in a matter of just weeks, I think. Weeks. Now they are all multimillionaires. And these,
Because they were letting people go,
yeah, because they were selling these lucky tickets
right, to
for
get out of the country.
thousands of people. Yeah.
To get
And
out of the country, you're saying.
mhm.
Right. Okay. So these border guards made a lot of money doing that. They were, the first profiteers after the military industrial complex. But, I just want to ask you straight out, and I know we'll kind of jump around here on topics. Is this war unwinnable?
My understanding is that the war is not winnable. And I remember before actually it all started, I already knew that the likelihood is very high that Russia will invade. So I started to study some materials. And just before the big invasion, I learned that American Institute for the War, something like this is the name, its name. They said it's predicted that the likelihood of Ukraine winning the war with Russia is only 1%. What we have now in Ukraine, territory is lost, people are killed, and Russia continues the invasion slowly but surely.
Look, nobody profiting wants this war to end. They want to keep it going. And it's just so sad that they're destroying so much property and so many lives. But how could it end? Should Ukraine just give up part of its land to Russia? Or what happens? What is an ending strategy? What's an end game here?
That's interesting to see how people think that the war began on February 24th, 2022. The war began, in my opinion, at least 10 years ago in 2014 when we
With
had
the Crimea situation?
with the Crimea and
Yeah.
eastern part of Ukraine. And to end the war, we have to understand, to ask what Russians want. And for what I have learned, when I studied, and I'm studied this war for a month, maybe for a couple of years already, they want to be respected. They want to be an equal part on the global arena. And the West doesn't want Russia to be that big player. They want Russia to be weak. They want Russia probably to dispel in multiple states. But Russia would be satisfied when West would recognize it and respect. This is my understanding and opinion. And if Russia would be really truly respected and welcomed into the club, Russia, in this case, Russia could probably give back even Crimea. If they were truly players in a club, they wouldn't care about Crimea. As long as they are not respected,
Yeah.
put it down, they would resist
Uh-huh.
with every means that are available.
Right. Yeah, and that's just unlikely to happen with the current environment. Well, how do you think Trump would treat this differently?
I watched like probably dozen of Trump's rally speeches, and I'm always wondering what is his strategy for success.
He
He has
always
a
says
recipe.
he'll end the war, but there's not
Yeah,
much
he always
specifics
says
about
he
that.
has a recipe, but he won't tell it now because then it won't be an element of surprise. I have no idea how, but people at that level, they know even much more than we do, and I think he has something under the belt.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I have no idea. I have no idea, but I don't believe that Trump will be supporting the idea of Ukraine brought back to the borders of 1991,
Yeah. Right. Right.
as it was in 2014.
Talk to us about the corruption that's going on. Both you and your wife believe there's an incredible amount of corruption happening, and I have no doubt that there is. But can you elaborate on that for us?
What is corruption for you?
people taking money that is supposed to be going for one thing to another thing. Certainly, people getting rich off the war. Maybe Zelensky is one of them. There just seems to be too much interest in keeping the war going because it's profitable.
Ukraine is considered to be one of the most corrupted countries in the world, probably at the moment, the most corrupted country. I don't have facts, me personally.
Yeah.
I only have ideas that I have read or watched in some oppositional Telegram channels. Corruption is just everywhere. As I said, the border, I know, okay, I tell you the story, what corruption is from my friend's experience. They paid $5,000 for my friend with his wife and two daughters to leave the country with fake medical tests.
Yeah.
At the border, they were caught because that paper was not well written. So he was caught. He was put in under the investigation. He had the criminal judge. He was heading for 5 or 7 years in prison just because he had that paper which was faked. When he was caught at the border, another guy who was supposed to investigate him said, "We can go through the court. You'll be in prison for 5 or 7 years, or you just pay me $7,000 and I arrange it, and you leave the country."
Yeah.
And 1 month later, he paying this another guy, so altogether $12,000. He left the country. The corruption is just in these terms. It's just everywhere. People are earning on the war. There are people very happy that the war is going on in Ukraine because they're becoming multimillionaires in matter of no time.
Right. All these war profiteers. And I mean, they're rounding up men on the streets without any proper training and putting them in the battlefield. Tell us what's going on there.
We've probably seen already this. There are thousands, probably by now, there's thousands of videos showing people being kidnapped from the streets. Like a couple of days ago, the big concert was going on in the center of Kiev. I don't know how many people there were, probably 20,000, maybe 30,000, maybe even more. I just don't know the capacity of that hall. And at the exit, after the concert, I think it was 50 military agents packing people in the buses.
Wow. And that's just men. That's all men, right?
No, it's only men. It's only men. What helps actually when women are involved and they protect the man, they start to cry loudly. They start to videotaping it. And in this case, sometimes these agents are leaving people just on the street.
Unbelievable.
And it happens just everywhere. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, used to be in these terms safe up until probably half a year ago. Now it's going on also in Kiev. But people in the rural areas, they have experienced this since the last 2 years. And I have learned that there are villages in Ukraine, many actually villages, where there are no man population except for the young and for the very old, because they were all taken and most of them already dead.
Unbelievable. It's awful. How does it end? When does it end? Does it just keep going forever? But what are other Ukrainians and Russians thinking that you talk to?
Their thinking, the way I'm think, is not popular. It is common, but people are afraid to express the wish that the war will stop today. Because when it stops today, Ukraine has to lose the territories. Technically, Ukraine lose. So when I starts to say we have to stop the war, this was my message from the very beginning, from 2022, from the February 24th. I was saying we have to stop. There's no chance we win. I was hate to say at least hated, but I was receiving threats in my private messengers. People were saying that they will find me whenever I'm in the world. I don't know the percentage. Again, I don't know how true these numbers are, but the rating of Zelensky is at the lowest possible level now, around 15%, 15, 17. The last number I heard was 17, and it was 8 months ago. Most Ukrainians are fed up, especially the Ukrainians that are still in Ukraine, Ukrainians that left Ukraine either to Russia or either to the West. Many of them have already forgot about their home country. They are just involved in the daily routine in their new country. Their children going to the school or to the university. They have to work some money. Also, because of this kidnapping on the streets, people are very much against President Zelensky. Or
Yeah.
should we not call him anymore? Because he is illegal too. His
And
presidency ran out in May,
and he just stayed in, right?
and he
Yeah.
stood there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So at first, though, people were probably in favor of Zelensky. I'm guessing.
very
Uh,
much.
yeah. Right.
Yes, more
Right.
than
And
90%.
yeah, that's definitely changed. People know Zelensky is profiting personally from the war. At least most people think so. In terms of the numbers, the UN estimates there, as of a few months ago, there were about 5.4 million Ukrainian refugees. Some say 10, 20 million. That's like half the country's population if it's that high. What do those numbers look like and where are they going? I mean, are they just dispersing all over Europe or?
In Germany at the moment, there are 1.2 or 1.3 millions Ukrainians.
Mhm.
In Poland, it used to be 1.2. Now it dropped to about 1 million or probably 900,000, just because Poland says we will be sending Ukrainian men back to Ukraine. And
Mhm.
so 300,000 people just run
Wow.
from Poland to Germany.
Mhm.
There are 250,000 people Ukrainians in the UK. So altogether, the estimates is between 4.5, 5, maybe 6 millions Ukrainians in Europe. I heard the number that about 4 millions of Ukrainians flew to Russia. So it already makes around 10 millions. There are over 100,000 Ukrainians in Canada now and in the USA. So probably
Mhm.
another 200,000, maybe 300,000. And a very small part goes to like Turkey and Emirates or some Asian countries, very small,
Yeah.
and very little to Australia or Japan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Ukrainians are now just everywhere, like bigger nations like Chinese. You can meet Chinese people everywhere.
Mhm.
Ukraine used to be very small, like 35 million population. Now Ukrainians are just like everywhere.
Right. I mean, the Polish people have definitely dispersed around the world for decades now. What else would you like people to know about this, Nick?
My request would be it's always better and healthier to have the more complete picture. To have the more complete picture, we have to see their point of view not only from their one side, like from the Western media, because most of the Western media are controlled by that media magnate groups, and a
Yeah.
very small percentage of media still have a different opinion. We love to see sometimes, not every day. We own this a big Indian channel, as I said, Arabic Al Jazeera, but Al Jazeera is very much pro-Ukrainian war. But on the issue of Israel-Palestinian conflict, they have a very different opinion. To have the clear picture, we must make an effort and find the truth through different sources and not from just biased one side. All
Mhm.
media more or less are biased, but when we take sources from different directions, then we can put the picture together.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
was I was very much against Russia when it was 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017,
Mhm.
up until
Yeah.
2021. But
Mhm.
when I learned where Ukraine is going and what is ahead of us, I realized we better we are going in a totally different wrong direction. We this is and I was totally disagreeing what Ukrainian government and president were taking us further.
Mhm. Yeah.
And in
So,
this terms, some say you are pro-Russia. Not, I'm not pro-Russian. I haven't been to Russia for more than 10 years.
right.
I'm Ukrainian because I don't want people to die. I don't want their territory to be lost, and I don't the infrastructure to be destroyed. I'm probably people like me are much more pro-Ukrainian than people who are happy
Right.
to kill
Right.
their
Yeah.
own population, happy to destroy their own power plants and
And they're
bridges.
people,
And
yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Wow, it's really an awful, truly awful situation. But we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts about it at risk to you. That was just very nice of you to do that. Anything else you want people to know before you go?
The good thing is that more and more Ukrainians, at least, are opening their eyes. And what I was speaking about 2.5 years ago, for many Ukrainians are now is obvious truth. But 2.5 years ago, it was like you are too
Wasn't
for
obvious.
Russia, you are
Yeah,
for Putin, etc. No, as I said, I'm for Ukraine. And when you, I mean the listener that would
yeah.
hear Ukrainians saying some things like this, understand they are very much pro-Ukrainians because they don't want the war to continue, people killed,
Mhm.
infrastructure destroyed. They want
Yep.
their countries to be saved and prosper. And I don't know if it's possible
Yeah. The
now
the the
at
way to
all.
be pro-Ukraine is to end the war.
Yes, the country has to be saved. The nation has to be saved. The
Right.
future of the country has to be saved, and it's not saved when it is fighting against the second, at least the second biggest war power
Yep.
on the earth, even with the support of 30 other nations.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the insights and really wish for the best possible outcome.
Thank you very much, Jason, for having me.